Hey guys, welcome to the Nerd Manual. So today I want to address the big question, what is a nerd? If you're a nerd, you probably already know it, but you're welcome to listen to this. You might find some information that helps you better understand yourself. But don't take it as gospel, and don't let anything that we say here define you. So back to the question, what is a nerd? And there's variations on this. Where do nerds come from? Are they born or made? Can you become a nerd if you're not one already? Well, let's see if we can answer this. Nerds are the product of both exterior and interior forces. The concept of nerd, as a definable term rather than a type of person, is a cultural construct. Nerds didn't wake up one day and say, we're a group of people with similar characteristics, so let's give ourselves a name so that other people can use it to identify, make fun of, and bully us. No, we didn't do that. The term came from society, particularly in the United States in the late 50s. It has evolved subtly over time since it was first used to label certain types of people. It has moved from an insult into a realm where it's more acceptable, but it still means mostly the same thing. Now, a nerd isn't just someone who is smart, although intellect is part of it. A nerd isn't just someone who is a social misfit, although social ineptitude might be a factor. Not all nerds wear glasses, use an inhaler, hate sports, play video games, read amazing amounts of books, and have a poor fashion sense. Still, nerds by definition always display some of these characteristics. Otherwise, people wouldn't call them nerds. So, can people simply adopt these characteristics in pursuit of nerdiness? There's a tendency in popular culture to self-identify, perhaps proudly, as a nerd. You might hear someone say, I got an A+ in class, I'm such a nerd. Or, I stayed up all night playing Battlefront, I'm such a nerd. Hey, these people might be nerds, or they might not. That's okay. It has also become popular for hip people to adopt features that once belonged solely to the nerd domain. So it might be difficult to discern between a nerd and someone who's being fashionably cool. Here's a tip. Faux nerds wear superhero t-shirts because the t-shirts show off their physique with irony, while real nerds wear superhero t-shirts because they identify with that superhero, and other nerds recognize that the person wearing the t-shirt is part of their cultural group. Hopefully you get the idea. I'm not trying to be harsh towards faux nerds, and I believe they aren't trying to insult real nerds with fashion trends, but there's a big difference in dressing apart and living apart. I'm also not judging anyone for co-opting the term nerd. In fact, I welcome anyone to the nerd herd. But I believe nerddom, like a good nickname, isn't something you can bestow upon yourself. It's a condition thrust upon you by life, and a title bestowed upon you by others. Okay, get ready for some generalizations and stereotypes. When most people think of nerds, they imagine a decades-old character, a person obsessed with school or work, who has an outdated or undeveloped sense of style, doesn't show any interest in what other people think about them personally, and may actively rebel against current concepts of what's cool, stylish, or even normal. You can find this archetype in popular culture from Jerry Lewis's Nutty Professor, to George McFly from Back to the Future, to Leonard Hofstadter in The Big Bang Theory. These nerds tend to have a reasonably deep knowledge of a wealth of subjects. They read anything they can get their hands on, can quote Star Wars and/or Star Trek to make a point in conversation. They know the rules to their favorite edition of Dungeons & Dragons, enjoy Japanese animation, played an instrument in marching band, and can converse about anything, as long as it's not in a large group of strangers. So, the above statement was a sweeping generalization, but that's the nature of an archetype. Or stereotype if you want to view it from that angle. But pick any 10 nerds at random, and probably none of them will fit that description exactly. Yes, there are certain stereotypes associated with nerds, and I have to admit that many of them have a basis at some point in reality. But it's not fair to assume that a person can't match a shirt and tie just because he's good at orbital mechanics, or that a person has trouble holding conversations in groups just because she's lead programmer for a major operating system. Real nerds have a variety of hobbies, personality traits, flaws, and strengths that make each nerd as individual as anyone else on the planet. But they all share common traits of high intelligence, interest in intellectual improvement for its own sake, and lack of a specific fashion awareness. And in some cases, they have a tendency toward introversion or even social ineptitude. Here's another thought. Rather than looking at a nerd and assuming that their intelligence causes these stereotypical behaviors, try inverting your thinking. What if certain conditions cause a person to become a nerd? Do myopia and asthma contribute more to social anxiety and a lack of enthusiasm for sports than elevated intellect? Do social anxieties push a person toward an overdeveloped appreciation of books and films? Do certain combinations of physical limitations and shyness lead a person toward escapist entertainment such as fantasy, sci-fi, and gaming? I believe so. I also believe that nerdiness is a self-propagating state of being. There is nothing inherently wrong with being intelligent, and people can certainly function perfectly in society without following sports or fashion trends, but nerds tend to carry a heavier burden than simply not knowing whether or not to wear a skinny tie, or who this year's Heisman Trophy winner is. If you really want to be a good friend, or perhaps more, to a nerd, keep this in mind if you're facing behaviors that puzzle you. And to wrap up, anyone is welcome to enjoy these programs, even if you don't fit into the stereotypes. But these articles are geared towards nerds who exhibit most of these stereotypical behaviors. And of course, the people who are involved with nerds of this caliber. Thanks for being here with me today. If you found this program helpful, be sure to give it a like, and let us know what you're thinking down in the comments.